The 13th Face Part 1. Chapter 1, The Gallery of the Dead. The first thing that struck them was the silence. No sirens. No buzz of forensic chatter. Just the soft whir of the security camera still recording and the low hum of gallery lights. Detective Arjun Malik stood at the threshold, his gloved hand resting on the doorframe as if he were reluctant to enter. "Jesus," someone muttered behind him. "There, perfect." Inside the private wing of the Albrecht Modern Art Museum, 12 mannequins stood in a perfect circle. Each was dressed in a plain black robe. Each wore a mask. And every mask was a human face. Not stylized, not abstract, these were replicas, down to the subtle arch of an eyebrow, the asymmetry of a nostril, the glint of a freckle near a mouth. The lighting had been adjusted deliberately, as if the killer wanted the scene viewed as a curated installation. Even the floor was swept clean, no prints, no dust. Just 12 hollow-eyed masks staring out in 12 different directions. A 13th mannequin stood in the center. Unlike the others, this one wore no mask. Just smooth, blank plaster, untouched. Waiting. Detective Malik crouched beside it, inspecting the stand beneath the faceless bust. Someone had scratched into the wood with a sculptor's chisel, the face yet to come. His partner, Agent Lin, approached from the side, holding up a tablet. "We've eyed all 12 masks. All homicide victims. All from different cities, all murdered within the last 2 years. No links except one." Malik looked up, dreading the answer. They were all profiled by Dr. Kala Brin. Silence returned, heavier this time. He stood, brushing invisible dust from his jacket. "Then call her." Dr. Kala Brin was in the middle of a lecture when her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Her voice, calm and clipped, echoed through the lecture hall. The human brain has an astonishing ability to deceive itself. Memory, recognition, trust, it all hinges on patterns we barely understand. Faces, for most of you, are anchors. For me, they are water. The student sat forward, curious. They always did at this part. "I have what's known as prosopagnosia. Face blindness. I cannot recognize you. Or myself in the mirror. Or even my mother's face. But I do see patterns. The way someone fidgets when they lie. The rhythm of their breathing. The tremor in a voice when they remember something they wish they hadn't." Her phone vibrated again. This time, a name lit the screen, Malik. She sighed. "Class dismissed. Read Chapter 4. You'll wish you hadn't." 30 minutes later, Kala stood in the museum's private wing, motionless in front of the circle of mannequins. She wore no gloves, no badge, just her long navy coat and a tired look in her eyes. The mannequins meant nothing to her. The faces even less. But the positioning, the symmetry, the ritual of it, that was something she understood. "This isn't murder," she said quietly. "It's remembrance." Malik raised an eyebrow. "You recognize any of them?" Kala shook her head. "You know I won't. But they were all your cases. All people you helped catch killers for." Kala approached the 13th mannequin. Her fingers hovered over the blank mask. "That's the point," she murmured. "This one's mine. I just don't know who yet." A spotlight above flickered once, briefly. And then the central mannequin, faceless and cold, tipped ever so slightly toward her. As if it was leaning in to listen. Chapter 2, The Profiler Who Sees None. Kala Brin had learned long ago how to fake recognition. At conferences, she tilted her head just right. Let the other person's voice guide her memory. Laughed 2 seconds after their joke, smiled a fraction too long. It was all part of the choreography she had choreographed for herself, one step behind the rest of the world. But in front of the 13th mask, there was no face to fake familiarity with. Back in her car, she sat still, fingers resting on the steering wheel without starting the engine. Rain traced trembling paths down the windshield. The faceless mannequin, that eerie blankness, pulsed in her thoughts like a migraine. Not the horror of it, she was long past shock, but the intimacy of it. That faceless thing, it had been sculpted for her. By someone who knew her far better than she knew them. She pulled out her recorder and clicked it on, her voice low and steady. Field note, 3:11 p.m. Albrecht Museum. 12 confirmed victims. All previously profiled. One faceless figure, marked as the face yet to come. Assailant has deliberately constructed a psychological trap. Not to provoke fear, but remembrance. Targeting my specific neurological condition. Conclusion: the killer knows me. Personally. She paused. Then added. I do not know them. Not yet. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit headquarters was colder than usual. Agent Malik walked beside her, the case file clutched under his arm. We're tracking the timeline. 12 victims, 2 years, 6 states. No consistent MO, different methods, different cities. No signature, until now. Kala barely listened. She was focused on the photographs spread out in the briefing room, crime scene photos of the 12 known victims. Faces she could not recognize. Bodies she had studied. Each had been part of a case where her profiles led to a conviction, or in some cases, a deadly confrontation. I'm being punished, she said aloud. Malik looked up. What? These people were chosen because of me. The killer wants me to see that I failed them. That profiling didn't save them. It damned them. Or, he countered, you're not the reason they died. You're the reason this started. You're the obsession. She didn't flinch, but her fingers twitched. I want the full psych evals on each victim, she said. Interview transcripts. Every file I ever submitted. Already pulled, he replied. But there's something else. He tapped the case file and opened it to the latest report. Victim number 12, Silas Norwood. Found, 3 days ago in Atlanta. Masked, posed, drained of blood. Last known contact, Dr. Kala Brin, guest lecture, Emory University. 2 weeks prior. Her stomach dropped. I don't remember him. You wouldn't. Malik hesitated. Then pushed a new photograph toward her. It was a snapshot, casual, from a student's phone. Kala standing near the podium. A man seated in the third row. Dark coat, head tilted, watching her. Not taking notes. Just watching. You shook hands with him afterward. She stared at the image, willing it to reveal something, anything. Nothing. Malik exhaled slowly. This is why we need you. He's hiding in plain sight, using your condition to his advantage. But that also means you've probably seen him. More than once. Later that night, Kala returned to her apartment in the city's old quarter. Bookshelves lined every wall. Her coffee table was covered in a scattering of post-it notes, each marked with symbols, words, and times. A map of her own mind. She didn't turn on the light. Darkness helped her think. She poured a drink. Saturday. Opened the manila folder marked Victim 0. The first murder that had gone unsolved. 5 years ago. Different city. No clear motive. But the victim had been a former student of hers. She had never made the connection before, never noticed that case as the beginning of a pattern. Because the killer knew, she wouldn't remember his face. The phone rang once. She froze. It rang again. No caller ID. She picked it up but didn't speak. A moment of silence. Then a voice, calm, male, and achingly familiar, though she could not place it. "You looked right at me today," he said. "And you didn't even blink. I wonder what your face will look like when you finally see me." Click. Calla stared at the receiver. And suddenly, she wasn't sure if she was hunting a killer. Or if the killer was hunting her. Chapter 3, The Face That Wasn't There. The next morning brought no peace. The city wore a gray shroud of fog as Calla stepped out of her apartment, the cold pressing close against her skin like the weight of unfinished memories. Her heels echoed faintly on the cracked pavement as she made her way to the bureau field office, her mind still haunted by the voice on the phone. "You looked right at me today." That voice, it hadn't just been a threat. It was a confession. A promise. The killer had been near her, with her. And she had nothing to show for it. No image. No memory. Just words. The briefing room at the bureau was buzzing, agents rotating through whiteboards, string maps, and timelines, desperate to find a pattern in a puzzle that refused to assemble. A new face stood among them, Assistant Director Erica Thorne. Mid-40s, polished, blunt, and no-nonsense. She had been called in from Washington once the 12th body was confirmed. Her gaze settled on Calla with a flicker of curiosity. "You're the profiler who can't recognize faces." Calla met her stare without blinking. "That's correct." Thorne folded her arms. "And yet here you are, chasing a killer who wears them." Calla gestured to the evidence wall. "Because this isn't about faces. It's about meaning. Placement. Ritual. Identity. And absence." She walked to the center of the room, picking up a photo from the latest crime scene. The faceless mannequin again. Everyone's focused on the 12 masks. But the key is this one, the blank. It's not just incomplete. It's intentional. A placeholder. She flipped the photo around to the back. A scribbled timestamp, 2:13 a.m. Murder occurred between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m. The museum alarm was disabled at exactly 2:07. The killer didn't flee immediately. She pinned the photo beside a hand-sketched diagram of the scene. He stayed. He watched. He wanted this face to be seen, not just by the public. By me. An hour later, Malik caught up with her in the corridor, holding a coffee in each hand. 2 sugars, no cream. "You're welcome." She took it wordlessly, sipping as they walked side by side toward the data analysis unit. "So," Malik said, "here's the part that's going to bother you." "They all bother me," Calla replied. "This one's different." He lowered his voice. "There's no surveillance footage." She stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "I mean every feed from the museum's East Wing, the one housing the exhibit, went black from 1:52 to 2:17. Clean blackout. No physical tampering. Digital override, probably pre-coded." Calla's eyes narrowed. "Which means premeditated entry. Specific timing. Familiarity with the museum's security systems." "Exactly." She exhaled through her nose. "So we're not dealing with a drifter or an opportunist. This was surgical." He nodded. "And it gets worse." He handed her a printed still frame from the lobby security camera, just outside the East Wing. It had resumed recording at 2:17 sharp. The image showed a lone figure walking calmly down the hall and out the front door. The person wore a hooded coat, gloves, and carried a sculptor's bag slung across one shoulder. The face? Obscured. Facial recognition failed, Malik said. Angle was wrong. Light too low. He knew exactly where the blind spot started. Kala studied the frame. He's not hiding from the cameras. Malik blinked. What do you mean? He's hiding from me. Back at her apartment that evening, Kala laid the printed photo on her desk and taped it beside the others. Her wall had begun to resemble a shrine of anonymity, images with faces blacked out, crossed out, or faded. She pressed her fingertips to her temples. She could remember every victim's profile, their habits, their neuroses, their final days. But none of their faces. None. It had always been like this. Since she was young. The condition that made her different, and brilliant, and cursed. She'd learned to read voices. Gait. Emotional residue. Things others ignored. But now the killer had turned that skill against her. Weaponized it. She opened her laptop. Clicked play on the voicemail message she had recorded from the previous night's call. The voice again. Calm. Familiar. You looked right at me today, and you didn't even blink. She replayed it. Again. 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 Each time, she noted cadence, rhythm, breath length. Mid-range tone, male. No regional accent. Likely early 30s. But it wasn't enough. She opened a blank document and began typing keywords from the call, organizing them as if decoding a poem. Recognition. Sight. Memory. Presence. You looked at me. You didn't see me. I wonder what your face will look like. Kala stopped typing. Something in those words struck her differently now. Not just a threat. An invitation. The next morning, a package arrived at the front desk of the bureau, unmarked, no return address. Inside, wrapped in black velvet, was a clay mask. Kala was called in immediately. It was expressionless. Unpainted. Unfinished. But embedded in the right cheek was a single fingerprint, burnt into the clay before it hardened. A woman's. Mia, Kala's assistant, stared at the print report. That's not the killer's? No, Kala murmured, it's mine. Chapter 4, The Echo Killer. The fingerprint wasn't just a shock. It was a message. Kala stared at the lab report confirming the partial print found on the clay mask. It matched a sample taken from her bureau personnel file 5 years ago. The print was old, but not old enough to explain how it ended up in a mask that had just arrived at the bureau yesterday. You think it's planted? Malik asked. Kala didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the mask, still lying inside its velvet wrap like a relic from a forgotten ritual. The faceless curve of the clay felt personal, violating, even. Like a memory she hadn't chosen to remember. It wasn't planted, she said finally. It's real. But the killer wants me to think it means something else. Like I made the mask. Or touched him. Malik looked uncomfortable. Did you? I don't know. The truth of it hung heavy in the air. Kala had consulted on dozens of serial offender cases over the past decade, some face-to-face, some remotely. There were conferences, prisons, interviews. Sometimes the people she studied became obsessed with her insights. Sometimes they just wanted to be seen. Recognized. Remembered. But she rarely remembered them. Because she couldn't. Back at her apartment that night, Kala dug through her archival files. Not the bureau's, but her personal notes. Stacks of boxes labeled only with months and years. She sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through old interview transcripts, audio logs, and field notes. Then she found it. A yellowed folder marked, Echo Killer, Unresolved. The name sent a jolt through her spine. The case was from 6 years ago, before her transfer to the behavioral analysis unit. A small southern town. 3 victims. Each one murdered and then posed in places tied to personal memory: a child's swing, an old family bookstore, a hospital bed. But there had never been a confirmed suspect. Just a pattern. A profile she'd drafted. And a code name the local press had given the killer, the Echo Killer, because he left no trace of himself, only reflections of his victims' pasts. She flipped through her handwritten notes. One line was underlined 3 times in red ink. He doesn't kill to dominate. He kills to reflect. To restore. To be remembered. Her own analysis. Calla's heart raced. A memory fluttered at the edges, unsettled, incomplete. A prison consult. A man. But no name. No face. She fumbled through her audio archive, pulling up a recording from that time. A scratchy, low-fidelity file. Her voice came first, steady and clinical. Subject claims to have no memory of the murders. But his language suggests pattern recognition. He speaks in mirrored phrases. Repetition. Then the subject's voice came on. Do you remember the bookstore? I waited for you. You walked past me 3 times. You looked at me. You never saw me. Calla froze. It was the same voice from the phone call. You looked right at me. The next morning, she met Malik at a diner a few blocks from the bureau. She brought the Echo Killer file with her. I think he's back, she said without preamble. And he's evolving. Malik furrowed his brow. The Echo Killer? But that was never confirmed. You said there was no signature. There wasn't, she said. That's the point. His signature was absence. No pattern anyone else could see. Only echoes. She laid out the photos again, this time, not just the masks, but their locations. Each murder scene had now been matched to a deeply personal memory of the victim. One had been found in her childhood home. Another inside an abandoned classroom where he once taught. Another outside a rehab clinic where she had relapsed. But how would the killer know these places? Malik asked. Calla tapped the profiles. Because he read my reports. I mapped these psychological trigger points. I built a vulnerability framework. And someone read it. Someone used it to orchestrate every kill, down to the positioning of the mask. Malik leaned back, shaking his head. Then we're not just dealing with a killer. No, Calla said. We're dealing with someone trying to make me the accomplice. They returned to the bureau that afternoon to find a new update on the desk. Another body had been found. Victim number 13. This time, it wasn't a sculptor or a student or a stranger from a case file. It was Agent Jonah Redford, a retired profiler. Calla's mentor. He'd been dead for over a week. His face had been perfectly replicated in a new mask, and left behind in a sealed envelope delivered to the Behavioral Analysis Unit's main reception, addressed directly to Calla. Her knees nearly buckled. Malik steadied her. Calla. She couldn't speak. Her ears rang. Her vision narrowed to the envelope lying on the table, her name written in fine, precise ink. Dr. Calla Bryn. One more echo. One more reflection. Only one mask remains. Chapter 5, The Man in the Cafe. The rain hadn't stopped in days. Calla sat at the corner table of Ravlin's cafe, her hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee she hadn't touched. Her eyes, unfocused, drifted toward the window, where rivulets of water streamed like veins across the glass. Outside, the city blurred. Buildings became smudges. Faces became ghosts. The 13th mask haunted her thoughts. Jonah Redford's mask. Her mentor. Her anchor. Her last link to a time when she still believed she could do this job without losing herself in it. She hadn't told anyone, but Redford was more than a colleague. He was the only person who'd ever recognized how much she was hiding behind her condition. The only one who never used her brilliance as a weapon, never reduced her to a face-blind genius. And now someone had carved his face into a mask and left it for her to find. She closed her eyes. And that's when she felt it. Someone watching her. Not a glance. Not casual curiosity. A deliberate focus. The heavy kind. The kind that clings. She looked up. The man sat 4 tables away. Alone. Mid-30s. Nondescript coat. Hands resting calmly beside a half-finished espresso. He wasn't staring anymore, but Calla knew the difference between chance and intent. Her heart quickened. Not fear. Not yet. Instinct. Had she seen him before? Of course, she wouldn't know. He looked ordinary. That was the worst part. Not particularly tall. Not particularly handsome. Just, forgettably present. But there was something in the way he sat, too still. The way he stirred his drink, once, counterclockwise. And the way he didn't flinch when her eyes locked with his. She reached slowly into her bag, feeling for her recorder. Then Mia slid into the seat across from her, completely unaware of the moment she had just shattered. God, sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. She paused, then frowned. You okay? Calla's eyes darted back toward the man. Gone. His table was empty. The chair slightly pushed out. The espresso untouched. Calla stood abruptly, knocking her coffee over. I need a name. Wait, what? The barista. Ask him who sat there. They cornered the barista near the espresso machine. Tallish guy, gray coat, 3rd table from the window, Mia prompted. Just now. The barista scratched his head. Oh. I mean, yeah, he paid cash. Just said his name was Eli. No last name. Didn't say much. Do you know if he's a regular? Calla asked. The barista shook his head. First time I've seen him. But he left something. He pointed to the counter. A black leather notebook, slim, clean, with a single torn page sticking out the top. Mia reached for it, but Calla stopped her. Gloves. She pulled a pair from her coat pocket and handled the notebook delicately, flipping it open. The torn page wasn't random. It was a photo. An old photograph of a lecture hall, Calla at the podium, speaking to a crowd. In the background, near the shadowed corner of the room, the man. The same man. Same face. Same watch. Her blood turned cold. Mia whispered, that's from 2 years ago. Calla nodded, jaw tight. And he was there. Back at the bureau, the tech team enhanced the image. Facial recognition returned no match. Not just no name. No data. Like the man didn't exist. He's scrubbing his image digitally, Malik muttered, frustrated. Obfuscation software. Reverse lighting. Low-res printouts. He's smart. Calla didn't respond. She was too busy rewatching the cafe security footage. The man had entered calmly, ordered coffee, and sat where he had a direct view of the door. But what caught her attention wasn't what he did, it was what he wore. A leather satchel. The same kind sculptors used for fine tools. And when he stood to leave, he left it behind, just briefly, on the floor beside the chair. Calla froze the frame. There. The corner of a white plaster mold was peeking out of the bag. A cheekbone. Let's say this is him, Malik said that evening. Let's say the man from the cafe is the killer. Why let you see him at all? Why risk exposure? Kala's voice was low. Controlled. Because he doesn't believe I'll ever recognize him. He's daring me to try. Malik sighed, scrubbing his hands down his face. We're chasing a ghost. No, Kala said, her voice sharper now. We're chasing a reflection. Someone who doesn't want to be known, but wants to be understood. And he's circling closer. He left the mask, the photo, the voice. All of it leads to one question. She looked at Malik, eyes fierce. Have I already met him? Or have I been helping him all along? That night, Kala dreamed. She stood in a gallery of mirrors, each one reflecting not herself, but a different version of her. Each one holding a mask. Some wore her mentor's face. Some wore her mother's. One wore her own. But the final mirror was empty. And behind it, a figure stood watching her. Smiling. Chapter 6, Mask Maker, Mask Taker. The rain had finally stopped. But the sky still carried its bruised weight as Kala and Malik pulled up to a rundown warehouse in the industrial district, once a thriving artist collective, now mostly abandoned. The building stood alone among crumbling concrete and rust-stained fences, its brick exterior faded to the color of ash. The address had come from a tip submitted anonymously through the Bureau's profiler tip line, one that only someone with intimate knowledge of Kala's past cases could have known. The message was brief. If you want to find the next mask, ask the one who taught him to carve. Inside, the air reeked of clay dust and varnish. The studio was vast, an old freight space converted into a sculptor's workshop. Tall shelves lined the walls, stacked with molds, plaster heads, rows of clay figures in various states of completion. It looked like a museum of frozen expressions. But what caught Kala's attention was the work table at the center. Laid out on it, like offerings, were 12 tools, neatly aligned. Each bore an inscription etched in delicate script. Memory. Truth. Echo. Pattern. Guilt. Love. Voice. Silence. Loss. Sight. Self. Reflection. And at the end of the row sat a 13th tool. Unused. Clean. Waiting. Malik moved through the space carefully, flashlight sweeping across masks mounted on the wall. Each one eerily lifelike. Some bore initials carved into the base. We're looking at professional work, he muttered. Hyper-realistic facial replication. Could have fooled a medical examiner at first glance. Kala stepped closer to a headless mannequin in the far corner. On a hook beside it hung a coat, gray, nondescript. The same one from the cafe? Possibly. Then she saw it. A note, pinned to the lapel of the coat with a sculpting pick. You see with your hands, don't you? That's what makes you different. That's what makes you mine. Her stomach turned. Kala, Malik called from the far side of the room. His voice was tight. She followed him to the back of the studio. There, in the darkness, illuminated by a single overhead bulb, sat the sculptor. Or what was left of him. His name had been Elias Rourke, a reclusive artist known for his lifelike work in mask making and forensic facial reconstruction. She had consulted him once, years ago, on a case involving a disfigured victim. He'd been brilliant. Obsessive. Soft-spoken. He was now slumped in a chair, head tilted back at an unnatural angle, his face carved into a grotesque mockery of peace. Blood had long dried at the neck. But most disturbing was the object on his lap. A plaster cast of a mask. With his own face. Half finished. As though he'd been sculpting himself before he died. Malik stared at the scene, visibly shaken. It's a signature. Kala nodded. The killer's way of saying, the maker has been taken. The teacher is done. She leaned in, examining the cast. The cheekbones had been exaggerated. The lips too smooth. And the eyes, blank orbs with tiny X-shaped incisions carved into them. Blindness. She whispered, he's mocking me. The forensics team arrived within the hour, but the space yielded little. No fingerprints. No DNA. No forced entry. Surveillance cameras outside the studio had been cut cleanly, looped with surgical precision. But in a sealed envelope taped to the underside of the sculpting table, they found another message addressed to Kala. It read, "Do you remember what you said to me, Doctor? You told me I had no sense of self. That I borrowed identities like coats in the rain. You were right. But now I have yours." Kala's hands trembled as she read the words again. Malik looked at her. What does that mean? She didn't answer immediately. She walked to the wall of masks. Her eyes scanned them until she stopped at the far end, where a new mask had been hung. It bore her own face. Flawless. Unblinking. Cold. Mia, who had arrived moments earlier with the evidence team, covered her mouth. Oh my God. Kala stared at it. She felt nothing. Not yet. Just the hollow roar of realization building in her chest. I didn't know he was there, she whispered. But he was. Watching me. Studying me. He's not just recreating faces now. Malik approached. What, then? He's becoming them. Later that night, back in her apartment, Kala reviewed her own psychological profile, the one filed with the bureau when she was hired. Pages of questions. Answers that had seemed clinical at the time. One question stood out now. Question: what do you fear most about your condition? A. That one day, I will know a monster and not recognize him. That I'll sit beside him. Speak to him. Help him. And never realize what he is. She stared at the words. And suddenly, she wasn't sure if she had already met him. Or if he'd already met her first. Chapter 7, The Room of Forgotten Faces. Kala had always believed memory was fragile, but she never imagined it could be weaponized. That evening, after hours combing through Elias Rourke's studio and rereading the killer's note, she returned home to find an envelope slipped under her apartment door. No postage. No name. No markings. Just a wax seal in the shape of a 13th mask, blank, unfinished. Her hands hesitated before opening it. Inside, a key. And a photograph. The photo showed a room she did not recognize, tall white walls, a high arched window, a red velvet chair set in the corner. The light in the photo was golden, glowing, late afternoon light. Beautiful. Almost warm. But it wasn't the furniture that froze her breath. It was the wall behind the chair. Lined across it, from floor to ceiling, were dozens of photographs, faces pinned in uneven rows. Some faces were marked with red XS. Others were circled. Some had jagged knife scores across the mouth or eyes. In the center of the photo wall, in bold black ink, someone had written one phrase. The ones she forgot. And below that, taped like a prize, was a photo of Kala. Malik met her at the bureau just before sunrise. She hadn't slept. The key burned in her pocket like a secret. This room, she said, holding up the photo. It's real. I just don't know where. They ran the image through the system, nothing. No match in bureau records, no known addresses, no metadata. But Malik had another idea. They uploaded the image to the city's historical registry, searching architectural blueprints for buildings with that exact arched window and floor plan. It took 4 hours. At 10:43 a.m., they found it. The McKenna House. An old psychiatric rehabilitation center, decommissioned 10 years ago and quietly sold to a private buyer under a shell company. No names. No visits logged. Malik looked at her. "Do you think this is where he's hiding?" "No," Kala murmured. "I think this is where I forgot him." The McKenna house stood on the outskirts of the city, nestled behind a curtain of cypress trees and wrought iron fencing. Time had left its mark: ivy-clad walls, shattered windows, paint peeling like old skin. Yet something about it felt staged. Too precise. As if it had been preserved. They entered through the side door. The lock had been replaced with a digital pad, now unlocked, inviting them in. Inside, the air was still. Dust danced in the shafts of light slanting through broken blinds. The walls whispered with old echoes, muffled sobs, shuffling feet, the low creak of gurneys and wheelchairs long since removed. The floor plan led them to the second floor. And then Kala saw it. At the end of the hall, the red velvet chair. The tall window. The wall of faces. It was real. Exactly as in the photo. She stepped into the room. A chill crawled up her spine. Each face was familiar. Some were victims from old cases. Others were people she couldn't quite place: janitors, nurses, professors, students, faces she must have passed by once, maybe twice. She moved closer to the center. There, among the pinned photos, was another picture of her. Sitting across from a young man at a table. Her hand resting near his. Her expression unreadable. And his face. Blank. Literally. The photo had been scratched out, his face rubbed away by a blade or a fingernail until it was nothing but white streaks. Her breath hitched. Malik, standing behind her, noticed. "What is it?" "I don't remember this place," she said softly. "But I was here." She walked to the far side of the room. Taped to the wall was a page from an old appointment book. Dr. Kala Bryn, Consultation Session 3. Patient, L.M. Date, September 6, 2018. Diagnosis, identity fragmentation. Obsessive face mimicry. Repetitive delusions. Status, high risk. Dissociative tendencies. Patient repeats phrase, "I'm the echo. She'll see me when she forgets me." Malik's voice was hollow. "L.M. That's our guy. Lyle Mercer." Kala's world tilted. She gripped the wall to steady herself. "I did meet him," she whispered. "He was a patient. I profiled him, and then I must have signed off the case. I forgot him." "Or," Malik said quietly, "he made sure you did." They searched the rest of the building. In the basement, they found a room lined with mirrors, some cracked, some perfectly polished. On the far wall, scrawled in soot, "When you look at me, who do you see?" And beneath it, a single fresh mask. Still wet. Still drying. Kala's breath caught in her throat. It was her face again. But this one was smiling. That night, Kala sat in her apartment in complete darkness, the photo of the faceless man in her lap. Not the mask. Not the clay. Just the absence. The thing that made him so dangerous wasn't that she didn't remember him. It was that he had designed himself to be forgotten. She whispered aloud into her recorder. "The echo killer is not erasing identities anymore. He's collecting them. And next, he wants mine." Chapter 8, Blind Spots. Sleep became a luxury Calla could no longer afford. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it, the room of forgotten faces. That wall, pulsing with memory. That photo, carved by absence. And her own image, duplicated mask by mask like she was just another identity to be worn, tried on, discarded. But the worst part was the realization that echoed beneath everything. He had hidden himself inside her blind spot. Not by chance. By design. At bureau headquarters, Malik found her at 7 a.m., already in the analytics room, surrounded by open case files, notepads, audio logs, and coffee cups gone cold. "You're here early," he said. "I never left." She didn't look up. Pinned to the board behind her were all 12 victims. Threads connected them to locations, timelines, psychological profiles, and, most prominently, Calla herself. She had used every marker color available, mapping out not just their movements, but hers. Because the truth was becoming unavoidable. Wherever she had gone, he had followed. "This isn't a pattern of escalation," she said aloud. "This is a pattern of proximity." Malik stepped forward, eyeing the intricate web of strings. "Meaning?" "He's been inside my radius for years. Orbiting. Attending lectures. Leaving breadcrumbs. Letting himself be glimpsed, but never seen. He's weaponizing my face blindness." Malik nodded slowly. "So we start with the assumption he's been close. What does that give us?" She spun toward a separate set of files, those of her own team. Assistants. Analysts. Former students. Interns. Anyone she'd worked with for more than one day. "He could have been anyone," she said. "The barista. A janitor. The man who fixed the broken projector during my keynote at Quantico. A face I never recognized." "And you think he's still doing it?" Malik asked. "No," Calla said, her voice suddenly quiet. "I think he's stopped hiding." 3 hours later, they reviewed visitor logs and digital ID access records for the bureau and Calla's personal building. Facial recognition scans were useless, many of the entries had been redacted, corrupted, or logged with guest passes. But one name kept resurfacing. E. Linwood. An independent psychological evaluator. Credentialed. Clean background. Worked briefly with the Bureau's Civilian Consulting Board. Calla didn't remember him. Not his name. Not his face. Malik raised an eyebrow. "You ever meet him?" Calla checked the logs. "He signed in twice to observe a lecture I gave on subconscious behavioral cues in obsessive-compulsive personalities. Sat in the back. Took notes. No photo." She clicked through to the ID registration. A headshot appeared. But the face was average. Brown hair. Narrow nose. Clean-shaven. No scars. No tattoos. The kind of man you could pass on the street 5 times and never recall. Her throat went dry. "He fits the echo killer's MO perfectly." Malik leaned in. This guy could be Lyle Mercer. An alias. Or, she said, clicking back through the ID logs, he could be someone else entirely. A mask worn by Lyle for just long enough to get close. "Can you ID the face?" Malik asked. Calla's face darkened. "You know I can't." She returned to her office that afternoon, trying to focus, but the walls felt like they were pressing in. Her computer had crashed twice. Her email was filling with strange errors, half-finished messages she didn't remember sending. Calendar reminders for meetings that didn't exist. And then her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked up. Said nothing. A pause. Then a voice, warm, soft, precise. It's not your fault. You were just the mirror. I only became what I saw in you. She gripped the desk. Lyle. He ignored the name. There are things you said to me that no one else heard. Words that built me. Broke me. I recorded every one. And now, you'll hear them too. A click. Then static. And her own voice, from years ago, spoke from the phone. The self is not defined by the face. It is defined by repetition. By belief. By what we are told we are. Over time, we become the thing we're seen as. Her lecture. Her words. Her throat clenched. The line went dead. A second later, her office lights flickered and shut off. Her laptop screen blinked to life, unprompted. A single video began to play. Grainy footage. Surveillance angle. A therapy room. Kala sits across from a man, his face blurred out, deliberate, digital. Voice distorted. He's twitching slightly, wringing his hands. Kala's voice on the video, calm, clinical. Tell me what you want people to see. The patient. A face. Any face. I'll wear it. I just want to be remembered. Then the video cuts to black. A final line appears in white text on the screen. You never saw me. But you made me. That night, Kala scribbled in her field journal until her hands cramped. Notes. Memories. Names. Gestures. Habits. Not of him. Of everyone. She was building a new kind of profile, not based on face, but on pattern recognition. Gait. Posture. Pauses in speech. Nervous tics. Finger placement on a coffee cup. If she couldn't recognize the killer's face, she'd recognize the way he moved through the world. And then she remembered something. The man in the cafe. He stirred his coffee counterclockwise. Once. Then placed the spoon on the napkin. Right edge. Tilted 15 degrees. She flipped back through footage of previous crime scene visitors, news clips, student lecture audiences. And there he was. Twice. Once in the corner of a police conference in Boston. Once entering a gallery in New York. Same coat. Same hand. Same tilt. Different face. But same behavior. A shiver ran down her spine. She whispered aloud, as the mask on her shelf seemed to grin in the dark. I don't need your face anymore. I have your rhythm. Chapter 9, A Voice in the Dark. The apartment was completely dark when the file finished playing. Kala didn't move. Her laptop still glowed faintly, the final line of text lingering like a scar across the screen. You never saw me. But you made me. Outside, the city pulsed and breathed, traffic lights changing without purpose, shadows shifting on brick walls like whispers trying to crawl free. Somewhere nearby, a train passed, rattling her window panes. But inside, everything was still. Too still. She closed the laptop with shaking hands and reached for her recorder. Field note, 2:42 a.m. Subject has begun using my own lectures, my own voice, as psychological manipulation. He has access to my private files, possibly recordings from the McKenna House archives. This isn't just a game anymore. It's an erasure. Of memory. Of identity. He wants me to question if I ever really saw him. Or anyone at all. She paused. Then, more quietly. He wants to take away the one thing I have left, the belief that I know myself. By morning, Malik was waiting in the bureau lobby with a grim look on his face. Kala. He uploaded a file. To where? Malik led her to the cyber forensics office. On screen, a video, posted anonymously to a private, invite-only message board used by criminal psychology researchers. Posted at 3:13 a.m. under the alias Echo 13. The title, The Mirror of the Profiler. In the video, a voice spoke, distorted slightly but unmistakably male, confident, poetic, measured. No images. Just blackness. And his voice. They call her brilliant. The profiler who sees patterns in the dark. But how do you find a man who built himself inside her blind spot? I remember her. She forgets me. Isn't that beautiful? I studied her. I became her echo. I was the barista, the janitor, the man who carried her suitcase in the hotel lobby. I was the reflection in her lecture hall window. I was always there. And I will be there again. Soon, you'll see the face she never could. The room was silent. Until one of the techs leaned forward. There's a pattern in the audio levels. The voice isn't just talking, he's embedding something in the waveform. A code? Malik asked. Maybe. More like a signature. Something rhythmic, like tapping or breath patterns. Kala stepped closer to the waveform, narrowing her eyes. The pulses were oddly familiar. Replay the background audio, she said. The technician isolated it and played it again, amplifying the nonverbal sounds. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Pause. Tap tap tap. A code. 3 intervals. 1 beat. Then 2. Then 3. Her heart stopped. That's Morse code. The tech confirmed, typing quickly. The message came up on screen. Open the door. 20 minutes later, Kala and Malik were in her apartment. The building was quiet, eerily so. The lock on her front door showed no signs of tampering. But the voice had told her to open the door. She scanned the apartment. Then stopped in front of her bedroom. The closet door stood ajar. Malik, she whispered. I didn't leave this open. He drew his weapon, approached slowly, hand tight on the grip. Kala stepped back. He opened the door. Nothing. Just her clothes, shoes, boxes stacked neatly. Ordinary. Innocent. Until Malik reached for the top shelf. He pulled down a box she didn't recognize. A plain black shoebox. No label. Inside. A burnt matchbook from Ravlin's cafe. A crumpled photo of Elias Rourke, torn down the middle. A USB drive. And a mask. Not just any mask. Her first one. The one she had worn at a university Halloween party 13 years ago, when she was still a student, when she had gone as a faceless figure in protest of how people only saw her as the profiler. Even then, she hadn't seen that mask in years. How did this get here? Malik asked. Kala shook her head, voice hollow. I don't know. I don't remember. They brought the USB drive to the lab. Encrypted, but cracked within the hour. Inside, dozens of audio files. Recordings of her. Reading case notes. Talking in interviews. Even whispering in her sleep. Some were only seconds long. Others were full conversations, between her and victims. Her and witnesses. Her and him. She scanned the file names. One stood out. Prototype, Session 1. She clicked play. Kala's voice, tell me about the face you see when you close your eyes. Male voice, Lyle's, younger, it's always changing. I change with it. Kala, that's not identity. That's mimicry. Lyle, no. It's survival. Kala, who are you when no one's watching? Lyle, you tell me, doctor. Isn't that your job? She shut the file. Closed her eyes. She had known him. Profoundly. Intimately. Clinically. He had revealed himself to her, years ago, and she had filed it away like a routine evaluation. But it wasn't routine. It was the beginning. The first chapter of a story she hadn't realized she was inside. He wasn't just mimicking others. He was mirroring her. Building himself, one borrowed identity at a time. And now, he was ready to show the world the final product. That night, Kala received a second call. The same distorted voice. The others wore their faces. I wore yours. And tomorrow, I carve the 13th. You'll be there to watch, won't you? Click. No sound after that. Just silence. And the slow return of her own voice, replaying in her head. Who are you when no one's watching? She whispered the answer into the dark. He's me. He's what I forgot. He's what I can't unsee now. Chapter 10, Red Marker. The 13th body wasn't found in the shadows. It was placed in plain sight. At 7:16 a.m., a jogger on his usual morning route through the South Bank Promenade slowed to tie his shoe beside a mirrored sculpture garden, and found himself face to face with a corpse. The man was positioned carefully, seated upright on the park bench as if merely resting. His hands rested in his lap, clasped neatly. His head tilted slightly to the left, as if listening to someone whisper a story just out of earshot. But his eyes were gone. 2 crimson slashes had been carved across the sockets, a deep, surgical X etched into each. And above him, scrawled in red marker on the glass wall of the art installation. Face me. When Kala arrived on scene, the area was already cordoned off. Yellow tape. Nervous officers. A few reporters circling like sharks. The city was waking to panic. She stopped several feet from the bench, inhaling the scent of iron and rain and morning coffee from a vendor cart that hadn't yet been told to move. The message on the mirror wasn't just a taunt. It was an instruction. To her. Malik approached, clipboard in hand. No ID on the victim yet. Mid-30s. Male. No wallet. Clean nails. No bruising. We're running fingerprints now. Kala didn't take her eyes off the message. Red marker, she muttered. Yeah. It's the same kind they found in that shoebox you didn't recognize yesterday. Exact brand. Same pigment content. Of course it is. She approached the mirror, ignoring the cameras. The words had been written slowly, deliberately, each letter uniform in size, like a practiced signature. She glanced at the mirrored surface, expecting to see herself. Instead, she saw her reflection standing alone, but without a face. Not literally, but psychologically. Because she no longer trusted her own image. Not after seeing herself sculpted. Stolen. Replicated. The killer wasn't just stealing faces now. He was stealing meanings. Back at the bureau, the body was identified. Name, Caleb Rains. Occupation, freelance crime podcaster. Known for his recent viral episodes on the Echo Killer. Kala stared at the report. He did this because Caleb was talking about him. He doesn't want silence. He wants curation. If someone else tells his story wrong, he corrects it. Malik nodded. Rains published a theory 2 days ago that the killer was copying zodiac patterns. He said the whole mask thing was a red herring. Kala clenched her jaw. So the killer responded by making him the 13th mask. Public. displayed, and silent. But no mask this time, Malik added. That's the part that worries me. Kala's brow furrowed. He was right. The killer always left a mask, except this time. Instead, he left a message: face me. No sculpted face. No replica. Because the next mask hadn't been carved. Because the next mask was meant to be hers. Later that night, Kala sat alone in her office, lights off, door locked. The photo wall had grown. She'd begun posting the killer's phrases on note cards beneath each mask, trying to track the progression. The language. The metaphors. The shifting pronouns. It was like watching a soul emerge in layers. From mimicry, to obsession, to authorship. Then she noticed something. At the center of the message wall was the very first mask photo. Victim number 1. The man whose death had once been ruled a botched robbery until Kala reopened the case. The mask was slightly tilted in the photo. She hadn't paid it any mind before. Now she leaned in. There was something behind the mask. A sliver of paper, partially visible. Kala enhanced the digital photo and adjusted the contrast. A number. 13. Written beneath the plaster, hidden behind the mask. She scrambled to check the other photos. Victim number 2's mask. Behind it, 12. Victim number 3. 11. All descending. All counted. Until the blank mask, the faceless mannequin at the museum. The one waiting. That one didn't have a number. It had a word. She enhanced the image and zoomed in. It wasn't carved into the wood, as she thought. It was burned, etched with a branding tool. The word was Kala. She staggered back from the screen. It had always been her. The 13th wasn't unknown. It wasn't hypothetical. It was her. She was the missing face. Not the profiler chasing the killer. But the final mask he intended to carve. Her phone buzzed. A video message. She opened it, hands trembling. Static. Then a room, white walls, mirror, red velvet chair. The room of forgotten faces. But now, it was different. All the photos were gone. Replaced with one single, enormous image. Her face. Tiled. Repeated. Distorted. Stretched. Smiling in one panel. Crying in another. Screaming in a third. And the camera slowly panned to the chair, where a figure sat. Wearing a mask of Kala's face. Behind him, written in red across the wall. See me. The screen went black. Then one last whisper. It's time to come home, doctor.
The case may be closed for now, but mysteries always leave behind new questions. If you enjoyed this investigation, leave a like. Every clue you find keeps the trail alive. Share your theories in the comments. Your mind might be sharper than you think. And subscribe to our channel Detective Mystery Stories, where every case hides a deeper secret, and every secret deserves to be uncovered. The next mystery is already waiting for you.